What's up, my comic comrades? The time has finally come to cover Eddie Brock Carnage issue 1. That's right, if you're not aware, Eddie Brock for the first time ever has bonded with Carnage, his arch enemy. This is a huge deal. You see, at the end of the Venom War story, everything changed during an all-out war between Eddie, his son Dylan, and a future version of himself known as Meridius, over control of Venom and the future. Both Eddie and Carnage in the end were fatally wounded, and their only hope for survival was to bond with each other. If you're wondering what happened to the Venom symbiote and why Eddie just didn't bond with Venom, check out this episode right here where we break down the ending of the Venom War. But with that said, we're gonna get into Eddie Brock Carnage issue 1, where we see Eddie has now officially bonded with Carnage. But let's pause right there because you're clearly a fan of comics or you wouldn't be here. So we wanted to tell you about Encore, today's sponsor. Encore is an awesome marketplace for games, collectibles, and now comics that focuses on community, trust, and entertainment. And the live shopping opportunities makes Encore a great new place to learn about and shop for comics. Because when you're shopping for a comic on Encore, real collectors will demo the book they're selling, and many will even drop some knowledge about the comic itself, so you can learn while you shop. If I had to describe Encore, I'd say it's like TikTok was combined with an online auction. In fact, as you can see, there are a ton of sellers on here with hidden gems, and once you see something you want, you just swipe to bid, or you can set your max bid and the system bids up to it automatically. Just make sure to save auctions if you want to get notified when there are 5 minutes left. And as I mentioned, Encore takes trust and safety seriously. All sellers are ID verified, and the Encore guarantee protects you if your item arrives not as described. But there are also tons of giveaways in the app that are completely free to enter. And once you've entered a giveaway, you can get 5 extra entries per friend you bring to join the giveaway. Just share the link in the app with your friends, and when they enter, your odds of winning go up quickly. It's a ton of fun and a great resource for collectors, so click our link in the description to download Encore on the iOS and Android App Store and start winning some deals on comics today. Alright, now let's get into Eddie Brock Carnage issue 1. The issue starts off with Eddie on an airplane saying to himself, "I have to kill someone on this plane." Carnage then replies to him, "Yes, Eddie, you do. What's taking you so long? There are people all around you. Just choose one and get it done. What are you waiting for? Are you getting cold feet?" Cold feet reminds me of a story. I killed someone once by hanging them over a vat of liquid nitrogen and lowering them down an inch at a time. As pieces froze, they got heavy, and then they just fell off. Splash. Kill someone, Eddie Brock. Kill someone right now. Are you listening to me, Eddie? Eddie says enough and accidentally knocks over a glass of water onto the woman sitting next to him. He immediately apologizes, and she says, "It's okay, it's just water. Are you all right?" He tells her, "I'm not feeling very well, but don't worry, it's not contagious," as he takes several pills. Carnage then says, "That's right, Eddie. I'm all yours." He then gets a text from someone saying, "Just checking in, Eddie. You okay?" "I don't like this." He responds, "This was the only way to be sure. Hopscotch is on this plane, Bailey. Find him, get the ID, then you could tell the cops where to look. It's a good plan." She responds, "Yes, but you're stuck on an airplane with a killer. Not to mention all the other people aboard. What if something goes wrong?" He says, "Nothing will go wrong. I can handle myself." She tells him, "I know you can, but just don't be a hero, okay?" He then sits back and just stares at his phone before typing, "Not too much danger of that." So this tells us why he said, "I have to kill someone on this plane," because he's looking for a serial killer called the Hopscotch Killer. At this point, Eddie says, "Okay, let's find this guy." Carnage says, "Finally, don't take too long, Eddie. I'm getting anxious." Captions from Eddie then say he uses the Carnage symbiote to look for the Hopscotch Killer. He's named that because they leave victims across the country. And the way the bodies are marked, a distinctive grid carved into the flesh. No real patterns to the locations. Hopscotch may be a truck driver, but forensic analysis showed some killings happened on the same day, too far from each other to be drivable. The next thought was multiple killers, but that didn't track for me. That's incredibly rare. Carnage then says, "Oh, I don't know, Eddie. I've been working with a partner for years." But Eddie ignores him and continues saying, "Which is when I figured Hopscotch is doing his thing during layovers." Carnage says, "Yes, you're very clever. Cut to some very boring time spent in airports until I sniffed out a killer. Let's just find him." Eddie says, "Agreed. Let's just take a look beneath the hood here," as he uses Carnage tendrils to go into the minds of people aboard the plane, reading their memories to see which one of them is the Hopscotch Killer. Right after he starts doing this, he says, "They've never killed anyone. None of these people are the Hopscotch Killer. We've got it wrong. You sure the killer's on this plane?" Carnage replies, "Yes, I can sense them. A death of the other. Someone who lives in the ashes of pain. A mirror. They're here." Eddie says, "They better be," as he now extends the tendrils to scan the minds of every single passenger on board. Eddie then says, "It's none of these people. Not one of them is the killer. Are you lying to me, Carnage?" Carnage replies, "Why would I do that, Eddie? This is what I want. I'm telling you the truth. Your serial killer is here." here. Eddie responds, but I've seen every mind on this plane, every passenger, the flight attendant. Oh my God, it's the pilot. Eddie then stands up and runs to the front of the plane while taking the Carnage tendrils out of everyone's face holes. He then tries to get into the cockpit, but it's locked, and Carnage then tells him, what is a locked door to me? As Carnage covers Eddie's hand and rips the door open, saying, that's a fair point. Eddie then sees two pilots and says to himself, fantastic. Which one? Carnage replies, there's an easy way to solve this problem. Kill them both. At this point, a woman points a gun at Eddie saying, I'm a federal air marshal. I'm armed and authorized to use deadly force. Lie face down on the floor with your hands behind your head. You have 5 seconds to comply or I will fire. Eddie says, great, what are the damn odds? They only put a marshal on 1 in every 500 flights. Carnage tells Eddie, then the odds are 1%. It's depressing that you are so stupid. But we could solve this problem too. At this point, the air marshal is forced to fire at Eddie as he does not lie face down on the floor with his hands behind his head. So she says, this is your final warning. I'm sorry, sir, as she fires. But obviously the Carnage symbiote just blocks the bullet with her being like, what the? At this point, Carnage starts fully forming over Eddie, and Eddie says to the pilots, I know who you are. I know what you've done. It's over. The blonde hair pilot says, what in the name of everything holy? As the brunette pilot says, I am the only holy thing here, demon. You say it's over, but I'm not done yet. As he stabs the other pilot in the throat, Carnage watching on says, beautiful, just beautiful work. Which is clearly so on brand for Carnage. At this point, the air marshal starts firing at Eddie again, but obviously it does nothing to Eddie, so he turns around saying, lady, please, I'm a little busy here. At this point, the hopscotch killer, aka the co-pilot, takes his knife and cuts the plane's control wires and says, I will bring purifying flame to the cleansing fire. The demon will die. All the demons will die. My holy work will be done. He then tells Eddie, down we will go, Red Devil. You will take me, but neither of us will go alone. Eddie says, does he mean? Carnage tells him, oh yes, Eddie, I think he does. Eddie even says, this bastard just killed everyone on this plane, with Carnage telling him, I like this one. And then on the next page, we see Eddie and Carnage literally tear the hopscotch killer apart in gruesome, gory fashion, as both Eddie and Carnage say, it feels so good. This is just old school 90s Carnage, and I love it because as we know, Carnage is one of the most sadistic and gruesome characters. This is the same character that puts power drills through puppies' heads and pushed his grandmother downstairs. In any case, after this, Carnage says, Eddie, the plane is going down. This is amazing. I'd almost wish you hadn't killed Hopscotch. He did incredible work. See what I'm saying? Carnage is a fan of other serial killers. But Eddie tells him, shut up, this wasn't the deal. Carnage says, yes, time to go. But he says, not yet, this wasn't the deal, as Carnage wants to escape through the emergency exit. But Eddie doesn't let him, and in fact, uses Carnage to make a massive net to fly all the people on board to safety, as Carnage says, Eddie, what are you doing? Why did you do something so stupid? You can't just use my powers like this. This isn't what I do. This wasn't the deal, Eddie Brock. You sanctimonious monster, how dare you sully me, my legacy, by doing something like this? You don't deserve me, Eddie Brock. I'll kill you. I'll kill you dead. You'll never see your son again. You'll rot, Eddie. Do you remember how good it felt when you killed Hopscotch? Imagine how good it would feel to kill this many people. Your life's been so hard, you never get to feel good. Don't you want to? Just this once? We'll never do it again. We'll stick to the deal, as Carnage takes over Eddie, and we see the people he's carrying to safety fade to black. On the next page, we see Eddie wake up in a bed, sitting up saying, oh my God, no, what did he do? His phone then rings as Bailey is calling him, and when he picks up, she says, thank God you're alive. I've been calling. What happened? This is insane. He tells her the plane. Bailey, what happened to the plane and the passengers? She says, I was hoping you could tell me, Eddie. The plane you were on crashed, but they only found 2 bodies, the pilot and co-pilot. Was Hopscotch on the plane? What happened up there? He tells her Hopscotch was the pilot. Co-pilot, I guess. I have to go, Bailey. I'm sorry I can't get into it right now. I'll call you soon. I promise. Eddie then says it's time to talk face to face. Carnage answers, of course, Eddie, as we see Carnage appear in Eddie's mind, dressed like Frank Sinatra out of the 50s, and I gotta say, I'm loving it. Carnage says, I'm here for you, whatever you need, as Eddie says, what I need is for you to tell me what happened back there. What happened to the passengers on the plane? How did I get back to the hotel? I've got missing time, and the only explanation is you. Tell me what you did. Carnage then just looks at Eddie for a second and then says, no. Eddie then gets pissed off and charges him, saying, I'm not screwing around, you evil thing. Tell me what you did. Tell me, or... Carnage responds with, or what? Or what, Eddie? As he picks up Eddie and starts lifting him into his mouth. Carnage then throws him back, saying, there's only one thing you could do to me, and we both know you won't do it. If you die, I die, but that's not happening. I can see into your mind, Eddie, your soul. You're not suicidal. Personally, I don't get it. You're broke, your kid refuses to see you, you're completely alone, but for some reason, you just keep plodding along. I'm all you got, but that doesn't have to be a bad thing. I've been diminished, since all that business with Meridius. I'm not as independent as I once was. I need a host, and you need a way to tell yourself you're a good person. We both get what we want. Eddie tells him, you don't just want to host Carnage, you want to kill people. So Carnage tells him, so do you, pal. Don't kid a kidder. You want power too. You missed the other symbiote of yours, the simpleton Venom. You aren't the King in Black anymore, and you missed that too. In case you forgot, this whole thing we're doing was your idea. You wanted to bring me into it. You wanted to make the big sacrifice, carry me, so no one else would have to. Thought you could control me and get all my power too. You want to go after serial killers? If that'll soothe Eddie Brock's little baby conscience, fine. Be my guest. I'm sure we'll meet some truly interesting people. But let's pause for a second because that's pretty interesting. It seems like the only reason Eddie did end up agreeing to bond with Carnage is because he didn't want to risk anyone else bonding with him and figured he could be able to use Carnage as a tool for good eradicating serial killers. I actually love that. In any case, Eddie says to Carnage, yes, but not innocence. That wasn't the deal. What did you do to the passengers? How did you blank out my memory? Carnage tells him, I'm not going to tell you, Eddie. In fact, I'm insulted you'd even ask. Do you really think things wouldn't get bloody? We are Carnage. Enough chit chat. It's time to get this train moving. You need to find someone to kill Killer, but I want someone with powers this time. I'm evaluating these people as potential hosts. After all, I want someone with juice. Otherwise, well, it's not a fair fight, is it? Eddie says, fine, whatever. Who? Carnage then opens up his arms and says, oh, I've got some ideas, but it's not really my choice. Out there in the real world, you're steering the ship. So my good friend Eddie, when it comes to our next little hunt, you'll tell me, as he shows Eddie pictures of Silver Surfer, Bullseye, Hela, Jean Grey, Galactus, Venom, and more. And just like that, the issue comes to an end. I gotta say, this issue was phenomenal. I was thoroughly entertained the entire time. I love the writing, the story, and where it's all headed. This dynamic of Eddie being bonded with Carnage is absolutely amazing, and it's crazy that it took this long, but I'm so happy it finally happened. The fact that Eddie only really bonded with Carnage because he didn't trust any other host to have Carnage, or Carnage with any other host, is a great idea. He's like, nope, I'll take this burden. Maybe I could even take his power and use it as a force for good, but it doesn't seem to be working out quite like Eddie had planned. As apparently Carnage was able to block out his memory and kill all the people on board, but Eddie is trying to do the best he can, and now it seems like Carnage is forcing Eddie to kill people with superpowers as Carnage is looking for an even better host. All in all, this is the start to what could be an amazing series, and you can be sure we're going to continue to cover it. But let us know what you guys think. Are you digging this series as much as we are, and do you like that Eddie has bonded with Carnage? Let us know all of your thoughts down in the comments. Other than that, we'll see you next time when we talk about all things comics.